Hey there, from Southeast Ohio Solar Haven once again. Well, today, I guess you can say this episode here is going to be brought to you by Maxwell Technology. Well, whatever. We'll get past that crap. Anyway, there is a lot of questions out there. I done a video about supercapacitors some time ago, and I've noticed on my channel there under the comments there's a lot of questions and everything, and I think some people don't understand clearly what a supercapacitor does or can be used for, or where it can be used for, or I can go on and on. Some people says your application is wrong, blah blah blah. Look, I'm going to tell you people, and the non-believers and whatever, there is probably not an application out there that these are not wrong for. Alright, these are used in electric buses, these are used in car audios, these are used in high current applications that need that boost of power. They work in a lot of areas that people just don't understand. I have a small setup on my solar that's like these two right here combined. These two exact same boards. I've got them connected to my battery bank in a little box right here. People ask, well, what are you doing that for? Well, all that does for me is take care of surge currents. Okay? A lot of people don't understand that these capacitors dump a ton of amps, current. It's not voltage, it's the current. They just dump current. That's like these capacitors here. This is the only one I have left. I had two big banks of these and I sold them off. But anyway, this was a bad one, so I can use this as an example. Just this capacitor by itself, 3,000 farads. If I remember right, the current that it could dump instantaneously could be into the thousands of amps of current. So people say, well, you're using it as a wrong application. I don't believe that, because it's used in car audio. Car audios are in car audio, it's a high current application. People will take and build banks of 6 of these. You put 6 of these together, they're good for 16.2 volt. Okay, that's the same way with these. These are 3,000 farads. These D-cell ones here, I'll use this one. I'll show it to you right here. These D-cell ones here. See that? 350 farads. So what happens here is if you take and put these in parallel, alright, these are in series. I want to explain something. If you put them in parallel, they're just like a regular lead acid battery. If you put them in parallel, you add up the farads. So it would be 700, 700. You see right there, it'd be 1400. So if you put these in parallel, it'd be 2,100 farad. But when you wire them in series, we're going back to electronics class. What do we get? We divide that number by 6, so we end up with 58.3 farads. So technically you got a 58 farad super cap. Same way with here. If you take 6 of these and wire them in parallel, you'd have, oh good Lord have mercy, it'd be 18,000 farad. That would knock your shorts off. I'm not kidding. But you put them in series, you end up with a 500 farad capacitor bank. And that's what we mostly do. Now, I've had some questions about voltages and stuff. How do you do one for 24, 48, whatever? Well, if you take these for instance. There's 12 of them here. So we got 12 of these here. And if you notice, these two are wired together because each one of these is a 12 volt bank. So you'd end up with 12 in series for 24. If I remember right, this adds up to, got to do the math, 16.2, 16.2, you do the math, that's 34.4, whatever, 33.4, math off my head's not working today. 32.4, there we go. So that means I can handle up to 32.4. So if you wanted to use it as a 24 volt, it would just be fine. I know people are going to say, well, it don't do any good if you charge all the way up. It doesn't matter if you charge all the way up. It's a capacitor. It's not going to matter. You're only using it for short bursts of energy anyway. It's not a battery. Alright. Same way with if you're doing 48 volt, then you would double this. You'd have 4 of these in series to do 24 volt, or 24 of these in series to make a 48 volt. In fact, I think 24 in series would carry you for 60 volt systems too. I think you'd have to go from 20, you'd have to go to 30 capacitors if you wanted to do 72 volt in series. So that's how you would do that. A lot of people was asking questions, how would you make a 48 volt, 36 volt? So that's how you would do that. You put these in series and add them up. For every 6, you're good for 12 volt. Or 14.8 volt or whatever. 14.6, 14.4, whatever you're charging in your solar system. Now to compare this, here's an old school capacitor. This is what we used to call cans back in the day. That, my friends, that is a 2 farad capacitor. This is how far we've come. But this capacitor there, put this down, this capacitor here is actually rated for 16 volts. I think the top voltage on it was 20. Because it was a car stereo capacitor, it had a case, and it had this fancy little doodad on top of it. Anyway, yeah. That's 2 farads at 20 volt, but yet we can stuff that in a can. 3,000 farads, 2.7 volt. But yeah, that's the thing. I wanted to give you guys a video on that. A lot of people's been asking me questions about the super capacitors and stuff. And I wanted to let them know that, hey, look, this is how it's worked. These boards here were kits that I had to buy the board separately and the cap separately, and then all I had to do was do the soldering and mounting the capacitors on. You can buy these on eBay. If you look, just make sure, be careful out there, because there is a lot of Chinese knockoffs or fakes, so make sure you get the correct ones. Most of the ones, especially these big ones like this, they will be, they will have a serial number on each one and everything, and they'll have this one's been beat up, it's awful. They'll have this QR code most of the time and a serialized number on the end. That's how I usually keep an eye on them. But yeah, this is what I want to give you a video on today, you guys. Just in case you was wondering, these two here are tied together for 24 volt. This is just a straight up 12 volt. I had some wires on there I was playing around with. That's flat out 12 volt. And you want to charge these carefully. They're no joke. You got to be careful when you charge them up and then you put them in your system. You don't want to wire them directly into your system, because it can just cause havoc. So yep, that's what I wanted to go out on today. Give you a little video on the capacitors. I noticed that people's been asking questions about it. like I said, once again, I'll go over it real quick. 6 of those for 12, and then you put them in series. You got 12 for 24, and then you're going to go to 18 for 36, and then you're going to have 24 of these in series to do 48 volt or a 60 volt system, because when you add it all up, it's 30. If you like this right here, it's 32.4. So you go to add it up, you're going to be at 64.8. So a 60 volt system will still work for 48. So 4 banks in series like this would handle a 48 or 60 volt system. And then if you have a 72 volt, you're going to have to go to another 6 more in series on top of that to make it. So anyway, have a good one. Like, click, do whatever. It's not much of an explanation, but I hope it helps somebody out there. Have fun.